My uncle's words still echo in my mind, as if time itself refuses to let them fade. That girl will never amount to anything. He spat those words like poison while my mother was lying in a hospital bed, fighting for her life, and I was juggling 3 exhausting jobs just to keep the lights on. What he didn't realize was that in just 2 short years, I'd built something worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. From nothing but sleepless nights, desperation, and grit. And when those same relatives who once looked down on me came crawling back, begging for their share, I had a very special surprise waiting for them. If you've ever dreamed of the moment when every person who doubted you finally gets their wake-up call, keep listening, because this isn't just about revenge. It's about transformation. So, hit that like button if you believe in karma, because this story proves that sometimes, the best revenge is just letting people reveal who they truly are. Let's rewind. The day I turned 18 should have been the happiest day of my life. A day full of laughter, cake, and freedom. But instead, it became the day everything I knew shattered. I was standing in the kitchen that morning, flipping pancakes for what I thought was going to be another ordinary Tuesday. The smell of butter and coffee filled the air, the radio hummed softly, and for a moment, life almost felt normal. Then my father walked in, suitcase in hand. One I'd never seen before. "I'm done," he said flatly, his tone so cold it felt like a stranger's voice. He didn't even look at me, just stood there, eyes empty, as if he were commenting on the weather. "Sarah, figure it out from here." My mother, Sarah, froze by the stove. Her hand trembled as she held the spatula, the sound of bacon sizzling behind her filling the silence he left. I watched 20 years of marriage dissolve in just 6 cruel words. No explanation, no goodbye, no trace of emotion. Just a man walking away from his family as though we were nothing more than a chapter he was done reading. The door closed softly behind him. Not with a slam, that would have been honest. It was a quiet click, the kind that echoes in your chest long after it fades, the sound of abandonment disguised as normal. "Don't cry, sweetheart," Mom whispered through her own tears, her voice shaking but steady. "We'll find a way. We always do." And somehow for exactly 13 months we did. I threw myself into finishing my senior year while Mom took double shifts at the local diner. We became a team, not by choice but by survival. Money was tight but we managed. Our dinners became canned soup and toast. Designer clothes turned into thrift store finds. But through it all we had each other. We were together. We were enough. Until that morning, the morning everything changed. I was getting ready for my part-time shift at the grocery store when I heard it. A sound I'll never forget. My mother's violent coughing from the bathroom, followed by a loud crash. I sprinted down the hall and found her on the floor beside the toilet, her face as pale as paper, clutching her stomach in agony. "Just ate something bad." She tried to laugh, but her voice broke. We both knew she was lying. For weeks she had been tired, nauseous, weaker than usual. She thought she could hide it from me. But I noticed every wince, every moment she caught her breath when she thought I wasn't looking. 8 long hours later, we sat in the hospital under harsh fluorescent lights, surrounded by the heavy silence of people silently praying for good news. When Dr. Martinez finally stepped into the room, his eyes said it all before his mouth did. "Mrs. Chen," he began carefully, "I'm afraid the results show you have stage 3 pancreatic cancer." Those words hit harder than any physical blow. My mother's strength, the same strength that had held our broken family together, seemed to crumble all at once. "How long?" she whispered. "With treatment, 12 to 18 months, he said softly. "Without it?" He didn't finish. He didn't need to. That night, as Mom slept in her hospital bed, I made a decision that changed my life. College could wait. Dreams could wait. Everything could wait. Except her. The next morning, I walked into the admissions office at State University and withdrew my enrollment. 4 years of work, essays, scholarships, SATs, gone in an instant. The counselor looked at me with pity. "Are you sure, Elena? You're giving up a lot." "I'm sure," I said, and I was. Because what's a diploma worth if the person who sacrificed everything for you isn't around to see you earn it? Job hunting became my new full-time goal. The call center hired me for the night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., dealing with angry customers shouting about dropped calls, During the day, I worked at Martinez Family Market, stocking shelves and running the register. Mrs. Martinez knew about Mom's illness. Everyone in the neighborhood did. And she gave me flexibility. Small kindnesses that meant everything when the world felt cruel. But even with 2 jobs, sometimes working 90 hours a week, the money wasn't enough. Every paycheck vanished into medical bills. Chemotherapy alone cost more than I made in a month. And the experimental treatments, the ones that might buy us more time, were out of reach. The numbers haunted me. $15,000 for one scan, $8,000 for one medication, $25,000 for one surgery. Every night I sat at the kitchen table, calculator in hand, tears blurring the numbers as I tried to make the math add up. But desperation doesn't listen to logic. And that's when desperation pushed me towards something unexpected. I'd seen people online making money from social media. Influencers, vloggers, people with perfect smiles and perfect lives. I wasn't one of them. I didn't have money, fame, or beauty. What could I possibly offer? Then one night, after a brutal shift, I opened Instagram. I uploaded a photo of Mom sleeping in her hospital chair, her bald head wrapped in the bright yellow scarf I'd bought her to make her smile. I wrote, "Day 67 of chemo." She asked me today if I regret dropping out of college. I told her the truth. I'd drop out of life itself if it meant she could stay in mine. I expected maybe 5 likes from old friends. Instead, I woke up to hundreds of comments. People shared their stories, sent prayers, and asked how they could help. That's when it clicked. Maybe I didn't need perfection. Maybe honesty was enough. So I kept posting. Not the filtered, flawless moments, but the real ones. The fear, the strength, the hope that somehow we'd find our way again. I started posting regularly. Not just the pretty moments, but the real ones. The 3 a.m. panic attacks, the insurance denials, the way Mom would apologize for being sick as if cancer was somehow her fault. The way I'd smile during the day and cry in my car during breaks. The followers started growing, hundreds became thousands. Thousands became tens of thousands. People weren't just watching, they were connecting, sharing, caring about 2 strangers fighting an impossible fight. Comments turned into direct messages turned into donations. Small amounts at first, $5 here, $20 there, but they added up. People who had never met us were literally keeping us alive. When I hit 50,000 followers, someone suggested I start a YouTube channel. "You have a story worth telling," they said, "and people will support you there too." The idea terrified me. Instagram felt safe, controlled. YouTube was permanent, public. What if I said the wrong thing? What if people saw through me? But desperation is a powerful motivator. My first video was shaky, filmed on my cracked phone in our tiny apartment. It talked about our journey, about the impossible choice between education and survival, about the kindness of strangers keeping hope alive. I was honest about being scared, about not knowing if what I was doing would work. That video got 10,000 views in the first week. The second got 25,000. By my 10th video, I had 100,000 subscribers and a steady stream of donations that covered Mom's treatments. For the first time since that horrible day in the doctor's office, I felt like we might actually make it. The community I'd built wasn't just watching our story. They were helping write a better ending. But cancer, as I learned, doesn't care about YouTube subscribers or crowdfunding campaigns, or the prayers of strangers. It doesn't care about fairness or timing, or the fact that some people deserve more time than they get. Mom passed away on a Tuesday morning in March. The same day of the week Dad had walked out 3 years earlier. She went peacefully, holding my hand, telling me how proud she was of the woman I'd become. "You saved me," she whispered. "Not from this, but from dying thinking I'd failed you. I thought losing her would be the worst pain I'd ever experienced. I was wrong. The worst pain came 3 days later at the funeral. I was standing by her casket, accepting condolences from neighbors and the few family members who'd bothered to show up when I saw him. My father, Daniel, walking through the funeral home doors like he had every right to be there. He looked older, grayer, but still carried himself with that same arrogant confidence that I remembered. He approached me with what I can only describe as a business smile. "Eleanor," he said, not even pretending to grieve, "I'm sorry for your loss." "Your loss?" "Not our loss, not his wife, but my loss." "What are you doing here?" I asked, though I already suspected I knew. "We need to talk," he said, "about practical matters, about what happens next." What happened next was the most audacious display of greed I could have imagined. He waited until after the service, until the last mourners had left, and then cornered me in the funeral home parking lot. "I know about your little internet thing," he said, "about the money you raised. That money was raised for family medical bills, which makes it family money. I think it's time we discussed how to divide things fairly." I stared at him, processing what he just said. Divide things. The house is in both our names from before the divorce was finalized. The fundraising money was for family expenses. I may not have been around, but I'm still legally entitled to my share. The parking lot was empty except for us, which was probably for the best because what I wanted to do to him in that moment would have landed me in jail. "Where were you?" I asked quietly. "What? Where were you when she was throwing up blood? Where were you during the 4 a.m. emergency room visits? Where were you when we were choosing between rent and medication?" He had the audacity to look annoyed. I had my own life to figure out, Elena. I couldn't be responsible for. "Get out," I said. "Now listen here. You don't get to get out." He left, but not before promising he'd be back with a lawyer. But he wasn't the only ghost from our past who decided to materialize. The next day my phone started ringing. Aunt Patricia, who'd spent years telling anyone who'd listened that Mom was dramatic and making poor choices. Uncle Robert, who'd called me lazy for working instead of going to college. Cousin Jennifer, who'd actually laughed when she heard I was doing some internet thing instead of getting a real job. They all had the same message, delivered with varying degrees of fake sweetness. "We saw your success online. We're so proud. We're family. We should stick together." Patricia was the boldest. She actually showed up at the house uninvited. "Honey," she said, barging past me into the living room, "I know this is a difficult time, but we need to think practically. You're young. You don't understand money management. I think it would be wise to let the adults handle the financial decisions from here." I closed the door behind her and smiled. "You're absolutely right, Aunt Patricia. We should let the adults handle this." That's when I told her about the meeting. I scheduled it for the following Saturday at 2 p.m. Same dining room where Mom used to serve Sunday dinners to these same people back when they still pretended to care. I invited everyone who'd suddenly developed an interest in our family finances. They came? Of course they came. Dad arrived first, dressed in his best suit like. This was a board meeting. Patricia brought her husband, Steve, probably for intimidation purposes. Uncle Robert showed up with a briefcase as if he was expecting to leave with legal documents. Cousin Jennifer brought her teenage son. My guess is she wanted a witness to whatever windfall she thought she was about to receive. They settled around Mom's old wooden table, the same table where she'd served them countless meals during holidays when I was younger, back when I thought family meant something. "All right, Elena," Dad said, pulling out his phone and what looked like printouts for my YouTube channel. "Let's talk numbers. Based on what I can see, you've raised approximately $180,000 over the past 18 months. The house is worth about $150,000, add in any savings, and we're looking at dividing roughly $350,000. "Fascinating," I said. "Tell me more." Patricia jumped in. "Now, sweetie, we know you worked very hard, and we're not saying you don't deserve something, but family takes care of family. Your success belongs to all of us. Family takes care of family." I repeated slowly. "That's interesting. Robert, remind me, when Mom was diagnosed, how much did you contribute to her treatment?" Robert shifted uncomfortably. "Well, we had our own expenses, right, Patricia? How many times did you visit Mom during chemotherapy?" I was very busy with work. "And Jennifer, when I was working 90 hours a week to pay for medications, did you offer to help? Even just to bring groceries?" Jennifer looked at her hands. "We didn't know it was that bad." "You didn't know because you didn't want to know," I said. "But that's okay because I kept very detailed records." I stood up and walked to the kitchen, returning with a folder I'd prepared. A thick folder. See, the beautiful thing about social media is that everything is documented. Every post, every comment, every conversation. I opened the folder and began reading. Patricia, Facebook comment, from March 15th, 2023. "Sarah always was dramatic. I bet half of this cancer story is exaggerated for sympathy. Should I continue?" Her face went white. Robert text message to cousin Mike. Screenshot dated June 2023. "Elena's wasting her life playing nurse. Girl should get a real job instead of this internet nonsense. Ring any bells?" Robert started to stand. "Now wait, just to sit down?" I said firmly. "We're just getting started." I pulled out more papers. Jennifer Instagram comment on my fundraising post. "Some people will do anything for attention. Maybe if Elena got off social media and got a real job, they wouldn't need charity." The room was dead silent. And Dad? I said, turning to him. I have something extra special for you. I pulled out my phone and played an audio recording. His voice filled the room. Trust me, man. I dodged a bullet getting out when I did. Let Sarah deal with her own problems. Elena's probably not even my kid anyway. Look at her. You think I'm going to waste my money on that situation? They'll figure it out or they won't. Not my circus. Not my monkeys anymore. The recording was from 2 months after Mom's diagnosis. A conversation he'd had with his brother at a bar, not knowing that his brother's wife was Mom's co-worker and my ally. Dad's face went from confident to horrified. Where did you get? Doesn't matter where I got it, I said. What matters is that I have it. All of it. Every cruel word. Every dismissal. Every moment when you all decided we weren't worth your time. I closed the folder and looked around the table at these people who shared my blood but had never shared my burden. Now let's talk about that money you want to divide. I pulled out another set of papers. These are receipts. Every medical bill I paid. Every donation I received. Every transaction went through accounts in my name only. The house. Mom's will left it to me exclusively. And it's been in my name since she died. The fundraising money. Every penny was donated specifically to me for Mom's care through platforms registered under my information. Patricia tried to interrupt. But family? I stood up, my voice echoing off the walls. You want to talk about family? Where was this family when Mom was losing her hair? Where was this family when I was sleeping 3 hours a night to afford her medications? Where was this family when she died scared and in pain? The silence was deafening. You know what the cruelest part is? I continued. It's not that you abandoned us. Abandonment I could understand. People get scared. People make selfish choices. What I can't forgive is coming back now after she's gone, trying to profit from the very suffering you ignored. I walked around the table looking each of them in the eye. You called me worthless. You said I'd never amount to anything. You mocked my internet thing and my fake job. Well, congratulations. That worthless girl with her fake job raised enough money to save the woman you all abandoned? That internet thing you laughed at? It built a community of strangers who cared more about my mother than her own family ever did. Dad tried one last play. Elena, be reasonable. I am your father. No, I cut them off. A father doesn't abandon his child when things get difficult. A father doesn't mock his dying wife's struggle. A father doesn't show up at a funeral asking for money before the body is cold. I gathered all the papers and held them up. Here's what's going to happen. You're all going to leave. You're going to leave and never contact me again. You will never mention my mother's name or mine. You will never claim any connection to our story or our success because if you do, I tapped the folder. I have enough documentation here to show the world exactly what kind of people you really are. And unlike you, I actually know how to use social media effectively. Patricia's husband finally spoke up. You can't just I can and I am, I said. You had your chance to be family when it mattered. You chose not to be. That door is closed forever. One by one they left. Patricia made one last attempt at manipulation. Tears in her eyes. Your mother wouldn't want this, Elena. She'd want us to come together. I smiled sadly. My mother spent her last months wondering why her family abandoned her. She died thinking she'd somehow failed all of you. You don't get to use her memory to guilt me into funding your lives. Dad was the last to leave. At the door, he turned back one final time. You'll regret this, he said. The only thing I regret, I replied, is that Mom isn't here to see justice finally served. I closed the door behind him and leaned against it. Feeling lighter than I had in years, the aftermath was swift. None of them tried to contact me again. No lawyers appeared. No legal challenges materialized. Because deep down they all knew they had no legal or moral claim to anything we'd built through suffering they'd ignored. 3 months later, I was featured in a local newspaper article about young entrepreneurs. The reporter asked how I'd managed to build such a successful online platform while dealing with personal tragedy. I thought about mentioning my family, about how their abandonment had forced me to find strength I never knew I had. Instead, he said something much simpler. When the people who are supposed to support you fail, sometimes you discover that strangers can become the family you actually needed. The article included a photo of me standing in front of the mural I'd commissioned for Mom, a beautiful piece covering the entire side wall of the community center where she used to volunteer, her face painted in brilliant colors, watching over the neighborhood that had watched over us. At the bottom of the mural, in her favorite shade of blue, were the words she'd said that first day. We'll find a way. We always do. Revenge isn't always about grand gestures or elaborate schemes. Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming the person others said you could never be, and then refusing to let them benefit from their own cruelty. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to cut toxic family members out of your life? How did it feel to finally stand up for yourself? And remember, sometimes the family you choose matters more than the family you're born into. I'll see you in the next